Hello, Rhys, my dear friend. What is it that what are you going to regale me with today?
That is a very jolly voice. However,
did I break up there? Was I broken up? Did you hear me okay?
I heard you fine. That was a very jolly voice. However, it totally contradicts the subject matter of today.
Oh, God. Is it going to be fucking weird and gory and gross?
No, it's not going to be weird and gory and gross. It's going to be like, there's elements for it upsetting. So it's Black History Month. So this is an episode I've been thinking we need to do for quite a while. It's been there, and I thought this is a perfect time to do it. And I want to talk about Canada's 2-year relationship with slavery.
Oh, this is going to be a fucking riot. Christ.
What makes Canada boring?
Have you ever seen the flag? It's a leaf.
£1 million to go to Canada.
Canada is boring.
I was actually shocked. I mean, from all the countries they could choose from.
Do you like maple syrup?
No, I don't. These Canadians ain't got a care in the world.
Get my country's name out of your fucking mouth.
I was like, oh, he's in Canada. All right. Okay, you communist.
The country needs you. I'm Canadian.
But don't feel bad for Canada. Believe me, this is their strategy.
I'll tell you another thing. Their beer sucks.
Hello and welcome to Canada is Boring. Hello and welcome to Canada is Boring. I'll try
it a third time.
Hello and welcome to Canada is Boring. My name is Rhys Waters, and with me is Jesse back in freezing cold Montreal. Harley.
Hello.
He survived Cuba.
Cuba was interesting. That's for sure.
I
left just as the whole fucking country is collapsing, so perfect timing.
Just the right shot. You ate what was left of the food and then you fucked off. Like you do that at parties all the time. That's what I heard. Yeah. We'll delve into a bit more of an experience in the small talk dimension, the STD zone at the end of the episode. But did you know that Canada had slavery? A lot of Canadians don't realize that slavery was a thing in Canada. I
did not know that. No, I knew that slaves escaped via the Underground Railroad to Canada. So
but there was a time when slaves escaped from Canada to America.
Wow. Okay. Educate me.
I shall. And again, there's some upsetting stuff in this. There's slavery.
This is a comedy show, Rhys. You know, like this is. Sometimes I have to remind you of this. Like this.
No, I know, but I have this urge when I find something that blows my mind. So I always assumed that was true as well. I think a lot of Canadians, but I think when I hear something and I go, but that is wrong. Canadians, like for Canadians to go, we didn't do anything, it was fine. To then see evidence that is contrary, I have to get out of my system, or it starts to hurt Jesse. So,
I suppose everyone. No one's innocent in this world. Okay?
Nobody is, and that's fine because
everyone's heritage is just filled with horrible, horrible things. Okay?
And it's not passing judgment on people today. Like all of our ancestors did something terrible. There was a caveman ancestor we all have who just killed a puppy with a rock at some point, and we all have to live with that heritage. Like we've all done something wrong in our genetic lineage. Doesn't mean that we're bad people today.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean we can't forget.
I was carrying around that guilt, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we shouldn't forget about what happened, but at the same time, I know that you're just as capable as your caveman ancestor, Jesse. So anyway, it was roughly a 200-year relationship with slavery from the 1600s. So we're talking very early before Canada existed, really, when it was still kind of New France.
Okay.
Essentially, when it was mainly Indigenous and African people were slaves in Canada, primarily.
Okay.
It was imported from France, essentially. When the French started to come here and colonize, they brought slavery with them because that was also a thing in France.
Admittedly, I just want to know, I never really delved too much into the history of slavery at all. I'm very curious about, were there rules and laws about how you could treat a slave and how you couldn't treat a slave?
I'll actually get into that. There were very clear rules about what you could and couldn't do.
And you could get in trouble if you broke those rules or laws by the government or the local law enforcement.
Potentially.
Okay.
But then in a court where everyone's racist, who's going to believe whose truth? If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, one example of there is an example of there's a lot of bizarre things that you see historically. So there's a Quebec newspaper from 1785, for example, that had an advert in it that announced the sale of an enslaved woman, her child, who was a 13-year-old boy, and a horse and carriage as a job lot.
As a what?
Just like selling the whole thing. You buy this horse and carriage, you get this woman and this child too. That was the ad, was essentially.
Wow. I was talking to my friend about this the other day, about how oftentimes we want to feel like we belong.
Yeah.
And we're taught by the society we live in that this is how you should be thinking, and this is how you should not be thinking. This is what you should believe in. This is what you should not believe in. And because everyone kind of does that, we kind of gravitate towards, okay, yes, I'll believe in that too, to belong. But very rarely does anybody stop and question what they've been told to believe, you know, and like,
exactly.
And so back then, I'm sure this was totally normal and nobody thought anything weird about it. But like, you know, so it makes me wonder, like, what things are we doing that's similar to that today, where we're just like, of course it's totally fine to do this thing. Everyone's doing this thing and it makes perfect sense. We're even given a reason as to why. Oh, it's because of this, but we never think about it.
Like smoking. Like everyone was like,
I was going to go with something much worse than smoking, but sure. Yeah.
But I mean, that's like, I remember half the plane being closed off to the smoking section behind a flimsy curtain. Everyone was fine with it, you know. Right. But it's probably like the most obvious change that I can remember as something that is dramatically altered.
By the way, this is weird. I don't really know anybody who smokes anymore in Canada. I don't know if you know any, like maybe one or two, but in Cuba, all the Canadians smoked. Yeah. 100% of everyone there smoked. It was weird.
So many people in the UK still smoke as well. When we took my kids there, they were like, why does everyone in the UK smoke and drink outside?
It's so strange.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Back to the...
So by the time Britain took over New France from... when Britain kind of like took control of New France, what would become Canada eventually, there were like 3,600 enslaved people, according to records, in Canada at that time.
I would have figured it would be a larger number.
No, but there weren't that many people in Canada, and also slavery in Canada was very different from slavery in America. Whereas it was like industrialized in America, it was much more like up close and personal in Canada.
How's that up close and personal? Like, well, I don't,
because they lived in their house, they served them. They didn't like live out in like accommodation or shacks in the field and work the field. They would live and cook your breakfast and clean your clothes and be in your household.
Oh, okay.
It was a status symbol. So if you were like somebody of society, if you were like a high-flying politician or a judge or like chief of police or a successful business person, you would flex by having slaves basically do all your boring shit and annoying stuff that you're too privileged to do yourself.
Right. Interesting.
So it was different from America.
Right.
And also they had a lot of the slaves were essentially what's called, I might be pronouncing this, Panis, which was essentially, or Panis, a derogatory term that was basically young Indigenous people, young Indigenous kids usually who were enslaved. Okay. So it wasn't all kind of African descended slaves. A lot of it was kind of Indigenous people that had been captured. So it was basically the colony had the same laws as France, where France had this thing called Code Noir, which was essentially the laws around slavery, which sanctioned brutal punishments, essentially. And under the laws, if you owned a slave, you had total power. You were expected to provide food and clothing, but you could also brand them, mutilate them, or kill them without any concern of punishment.
What?
Those were the laws in Canada.
Hold on a second. Hold on. So you could... Hold on a second. You had to feed them, but you could kill them?
You had to feed and clothe them. That was the rules. But then if you killed them, you could not expect any punishment.
That's fucking crazy. So
yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No,
in the
not
context
at all.
Of like,
it's like
morally, we can't work it out in our heads right now. Like,
yeah, no, like, oh, you're drawing and quartering your slave. That's totally fine by us as long as you feed them beforehand. Like, yeah, just doesn't make any fucking. That's just fucking stupid. Christ.
So it just gave people total power over the lives of the people they had as slaves. So and also So the average kind of amount of slaves in a household was one. Most people could only afford to have one slave, and that slave would be the person doing all the shitty work in the household, essentially.
Okay.
So they worked on farms a lot of the time. It wouldn't have been like nice experiences. And as I said, like a lot of the top people had it. But also they blamed slaves for things that happened. So in 1734, there was a fire that kind of destroyed a large part of Montreal at the time. And there was a slave called Marie Joseph Angélique, and they basically blamed her, and she was essentially tortured and hung, and they showed her body off to like scare other slaves. But there was no real evidence that she had anything to do with it. But she kind of. But this is the thing: when people
humans are disgusting people, we're just a disgusting species. Just like,
but this is the thing: she became like a symbol for resistance. Okay. What you find in Canada was that these outrages kind of did start to take hold a lot earlier than in America. So although it was happening, you found that like she did become like a symbol for like resistance and freedom. So when Britain took over,
that's the thing about humans. We are not an actionary species. We are a reactionary species. We can see things coming and we do nothing about it until something really horrible happens, and then we act.
We should do something about this. Exactly.
Only when something bad happens. It's bizarre. It's just part of our fucking nature. It's like, yeah, people knew that slavery was bad, but until that happened, oh, now we have to act.
Exactly.
It's fucking, I hate our fucking, oh God, humans are dumb.
So when
myself included,
we're all fucking stupid.
Don't run off to Canada. It's so boring there.
Patreon.com/Canada is boring. Canada's coolest club. Premium fun, privileged access to secret content, a chat app with the hosts, hours of fun for everyone, the promise of eternal life.
Patreon.com/Canada is boring.
So in the late 1700s, after the American Revolution, waves of loyalists came over the border to Canada from America. So, and essentially they were from the old American colonies. They'd supported the British Crown during the American War of Revolution. And they ended up coming to Canada to kind of like stay part of the British Empire, stay loyal. And they also brought a ton of black slaves of African descent with them too.
This is from where again?
From America. They crossed over the border into Canada with a lot of African slaves. So and a lot of them, that meant they were like big slave populations because they moved to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Quebec. So it kind of like swelled the number of people of African descent in Canada and also the amount of slaves in Canada. And the first lieutenant governor of Upper Canada, which is now Ontario, John Graves Simcoe, was like basically really shocked in 1792 by how many kind of loyalists arrived with slaves and how common it was for them to own slaves. Because it wasn't like a given that every family would have one. It wasn't a given that slaves were in every town, in every part of Canada. So to see so many people arrive with them was kind of shocking for them. And the rules, essentially, have you ever heard of chattel slavery? That was essentially the rules of slavery.
I haven't, and I'm afraid to ask. Christ.
So essentially, all it means that a slave is like an object. You can be bought, sold, gifted, or inherited like property. So if you're a slave and your owner dies, then your new owner is like the son or daughter or whatever. They write it in a will.
Okay.
And there are a lot of wills surviving from the 18th century that show exactly that. Like men, women, and children alongside things like furniture and property being passed down to others. And life expectancy for slaves at the time was roughly 25 years.
Jesus Christ, why?
Because back-breaking work, poor diet, like not given medical treatment.
God damn. I mean, I never looked into it. I never thought about it before, but like,
that's my point, though. Exactly. It's like it's a part of Canadian history that is not talked about. I'm surprised talked about surprisingly little.
I didn't know. Yeah.
And
it's a sombering fucking episode. Christ. Sombering? Sobering.
I did wonder.
Somber and sobering. Yeah.
Anyway. So also as well, there's like newspapers from
sombering is a word.
Sombering episode. It is.
Okay.
So often as well, like in places like Nova Scotia and in kind of Quebec, there are like newspaper articles and kind of like ads that are being run to try and help catch escaped slaves, that kind of thing, like wanted ads or like classified ads too. And even but this was the thing, slaves in Canada at that time, if they wanted to escape slavery, Vermont, the state of Vermont was way ahead of its time and had abolished slavery in 1777. So Canadian slaves would flee over the border into Vermont for freedom.
Wow.
So it's like the total reverse of the Underground Railroad.
And like I never, to be fair, I had every opportunity to look this up, but I never did. My curiosity is this: when slavery was abolished, right?
Yeah.
When it was like, okay, the war is over, the government has declared the dust has settled, all slaves are now free. What happened next? It's not like these guys had houses of their own, had money of their own, had like education and could go get jobs. Do you know what I mean? Like what happened?
Well, fundamentally, they would, like, in some cases, people would stay working for the people they were owned by. They were free.
I was wondering that, right? But like, did they have to then pay them, or was it still a slave sort of?
They would have had to pay them, but it's bizarre. And like the British Empire is interesting because the British Empire, they abolished slavery, but they essentially bought every slave. They like borrowed money to purchase every slave from the slave owners. So all the slave owners had a great payday when they abolished slavery because they were all very powerful and influential and in Parliament and everything. So they were all lords and aristocrats who had, they were the kind of like the business leaders of the day were all slave owners, or most of them were anyway. So the British Empire had to buy the freedom of every slave in the empire to abolish slavery. And I think the UK only just finished paying the debt off on that in like the 1990s.
Oh my God. Wow.
Which is insane.
So slavery was abolished and most of the slaves had nowhere to go. So they stayed being slaves. They were just paid.
Well, yeah, they would have kind of like, I don't know, they would have been like, they weren't necessarily like welcomed out of slavery with like a starter pack for being like a full, like kind of recognized human being.
Right. Yeah.
They would have been like just trying to work it out and kind of go,
that
do we
transitionary
leave?
Period is fast. And I've never heard anything about it.
But it also explains a lot of like structural inequality that exists today. Like you cannot look at the structural inequality that exists today without considering the moment that you just described.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, so the slavery kind of ended in, you talked about reactionary. It was entirely described how slavery in Canada started to become untangled.
Okay.
So on March the 14th, 1793, an enslaved black woman named Chloe Cooley was bound with ropes.
What's her name?
Chloe Cooley.
That's a cool fucking name.
She was bound with ropes and thrown into a small boat by her owner in Queenston, Upper Canada, and she screamed and fought with such ferocity that everyone in that area could see and hear her. And as the owner ferried her across the Niagara River to sell her in the United States.
This is after slavery was abolished?
This is while slavery is still in effect in Canada and America. because of the fight she put up and the fact she refused to stop screaming and shouting as he kind of like sailed across the river to sell her in America, that became like a bit of a public, like a storm publicly. The fact that this woman was like screaming with such kind of like resistance and ferocity, and a bunch of bystanders. And one of them was a free black person called Peter Martin, but there were also kind of white bystanders too. They went to Lieutenant Governor Simcoe, the same guy who was kind of shocked at the amount of slaves who'd arrived, and kind of complained. Essentially, they then started. That then began momentum, and he started to take political action, and a political movement built in Ontario, or what would be Ontario, and it basically like started to tap into a wider abolitionist movement to get rid of slavery in British North America, would be eventually Canada. And the whole British Empire was feeling the same. And they used the Chloe Cooley incident, that it was like a morally abhorrent kind of situation, a threat to public order, and not like the actions of a civilized society, the fact that that was an everyday occurrence. And what happened was they introduced a law in 1793, the Act Against Slavery, and it banned the importation of new slaves. It was a kind of a compromise. It wasn't like we're getting rid of slavery now. They just banned the import of new slaves.
That's a start.
And mandated that children born to enslaved mothers would be free once they reached the age of 25.
If they live that long, fuck.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's like you make it to retirement barely in that sense. So it was a compromise. Importantly, though, it didn't free enslaved people. But what it did was it started to halt the growth. Slavery started to wither because the only slaves are the ones that existed already.
Right.
And it meant that they eventually started to kind of like see it kind of like begin to dent. Public kind of opinion was turning against it. Quebec tried to do the same thing, but it was blocked. However, a lot of judges in court started to not enact slavery laws. So if you're a slave and you were going to court for like a dispute, you would like, I should be free. They promised me this. Often the judge would go in the favor of the enslaved person. So a lot of people couldn't get pro-slavery kind of stances approved in court. And a lot of them got freed. And the last recorded sale of a slave in Quebec, or Lower Canada at the time, was 1797. And the last newspaper ad for a slave appeared in 1798.
You don't have a copy of that, do you?
I don't know, no. But essentially,
that would be fascinating to see.
After 1800, slavery in Quebec collapsed. And by the 1820s, there were only a handful of like elderly slaves that people still kind of owned.
But by what time, sorry?
The 1820s.
Wow.
Which wasn't that long ago. It wasn't far off
really.
like things like photography being developed and everything else in our lives. Which for Canada, like Canada's not that old a country. And that was, so in the it's not that far from kind of the major moments in Canadian history and like nation forming. So it's very close. Sorry, 2 seconds. So yeah, so what you found was by the 1820s, by the time you got to kind of the late, the kind of mid 1800s, slavery just entirely stopped existing in Canada, and then Canada became like a haven. It flipped over to Canada becoming this haven from American freed slaves. So yeah,
wow.
So I know it's a very dark episode, but at the same time, it's a part of Canadian history that blew my mind to find out about.
It is. I didn't know anything of that either. This is what I love about our show is, there's a lot of really dark things happening in the world right now. A lot of really, tense moments, tense political situations. And it's just inundating with people's feeds. And at the end of the day, someone just wants a laugh. And then they come to our show and they learn about that. And so that's just, we're here to help. We're here to help make sure that you never laugh, you never smile, and you never, ever, ever are allowed to relax. Stay vigilant, people, until you burst. That's what we're here for. That's Thanks, Rhys. Thank you for that. That's great. It was very
You're
educational.
Should do the STD zone.
It was very educational. Honestly, I didn't know that about Canada. I'm glad I learned it. Yeah, it's very sobering, honestly. What was the name of the woman who kind of started it all? She was
Chloe Cooley.
Chloe Cooley. Cool
yeah,
name,
she's kind of very like
cool
a
name.
Historic icon.
Yeah,
I feel like Viola Desmond's on the banknote. I feel like Chloe Cooley should
be. You know what? I'd be down. Yeah.
Considering they just arrested Prince Andrew, I feel like, why have the royal family on the money at all?
Fuck. Exactly. Seriously. Who gives a shit about them? Fuck.
I know. Well, the thing is like you've got all the notes in circulation with the Queen on, and now you've got a king. Just don't bother replacing them with a king. Just replace them with Canadians.
I'm totally down for that. I think that's a great idea. We should like change them up every now and then too, every 20 years or something.
Yeah, like it should have like a Wayne Gretzky and other Canadians on there.
Wayne Gretzky and other Canadians. Yeah.
Yeah. There are so many more than just Wayne Gretzky, Jesse.
Is Terry Fox on
I
the
can
bill?
name at least 5 other Canadians.
Is Terry Fox on the bill? I don't think he is.
No, he'd be a strong contender. Although I take back Gretzky, he's like Trump's best friend now. He's like
fuck off. Is he really? No.
Yeah, he wears like a MAGA hat and hangs out.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Christ almighty.
I should do a whole episode on the downfall of Wayne Gretzky.
I'd be down for that.
From Canadian Messiah to MAGA hanger-oner.
Make assholes great again. Fucking hell. All right, let's go back into with the music, this STD zone. Yay.
You are now entering the STD zone. Incoming STD. Loading small talk. Enhancing anecdotes. Dick jokes processing. You have reached the small talk dimension zone.
So, Jesse, you got back from Cuba okay? You're alive. You're at the final buffet and got the fuck out.
I got a news article from my friend Ryan shortly after I came back about how pretty much the entire country is being decimated. As soon as there's a strip, it's a peninsula, it's a large peninsula. It's called Varadero, and it's where all the resorts are. And there's a downtown Varadero, and this is like how Cuba makes its money. Cuba makes its money from tourism. And so me going there, me bringing hundreds of dollars and tipping everybody and just being there and buying things is like it helps their economy. And that's so they're all very happy to see us, and they're very kind, they're very nice. It was unlike in Morocco where I was a walking wallet and everyone would try everything they could. Like there's 2 types of people in Morocco.
People type in their PIN code in your back.
Yeah. There's 2 types of people in Morocco. One was the type of people who were like, they were financially well off, not like rich, but they weren't poor, and they were the most generous, most kindest, they were most welcoming. They'd feed you for free, they'd give you gifts and didn't expect anything in return. They'd ask you to hang out with them all the time, and they were great. And then there was the very, very poor people in Morocco who just did everything they can to scam you out of every dollar you had at any point. And I felt really bad for them because they had no other choice.
Oh, it was desperation.
In Cuba, these people know you're there to have a good time, and everyone in Varadero, at least, all the taxi drivers, it's kind of funny that they'd have big taxi sign, big yellow car, and they'd drive by and they'd honk, and then they'd yell at you, taxi. And I'm like, after a week, I'd look at them and like, I know you're a taxi. Okay. Believe me.
I've seen those before. I've seen them in the movies in New York.
Right. If I needed a taxi, I'm pretty sure I'd be able to get one within 5 fucking seconds. You don't have to let me know you're there, man. But like, it's just, but like everyone, like while they were there to do a job of like addressing any concerns of the tourists, they were all very happy about it. They're in good moods. They weren't trying to swindle you. They would give you good prices, and I would go and ask other people like, hey, did I get ripped off? They're like, no, that's actually a pretty good price. You're like, oh shit. Yeah. Okay. So it was like, they're there to do a job, but they were doing it well. They weren't trying to rip you off. They were all very happy. Everyone was having a great time. That being said, I never got to go to Havana. I wish I did. I tried. They ran out of fuel, so they couldn't take me. So I just
should have walked. It was only a 2-day walk.
Only a 2-day walk, yeah. So I only got to experience Varadero, and Varadero, as it was pointed out to me, is like Disneyland for Cuba. It's built, the whole thing, even downtown Varadero is built just for tourists. Like it's not really Cuba, sort of thing. So I didn't get to experience Cuba, real Cuba. I got to experience the Disneyland of Cuba.
I went to Havana, and this was the mid-90s, and so all like the 1950s cars. Castro was still like in charge and not like totally aged out of dictatorship at the time. We were in like the main hotel, like the fancy hotel in Havana, and they had like a guy playing a grand piano, but it didn't have any hot water.
Yeah, I was lucky to have hot water. I didn't have hot water until I told them, like, hey, my room doesn't have hot water. And then suddenly it did for the rest of the trip.
But that's the thing. You see, like, the vast differences between, like, there's, like, things have built and there's shortage of things that you don't expect, like dairy products.
No, I couldn't. I went and got butter. I went and got a lobster. And I'm like, hey, can I have butter for my lobster? They're like, oh, no, there's no butter here. It was the driest lobster I've ever had. So, but this is the thing, is like these are first world problems.
There's a really famous Cuban cow, because Castro wanted to increase dairy production on the island, and I think there was a cow.
And they got one cow to do it?
No, there was a cow that was like they were trying to breed cows to produce more milk, and I think this cow either the propaganda said the cow produced more milk, or it did produce more milk, or something along those lines. But the cow became essentially a revolutionary hero, and I think it had statues and everything.
Oh, wow.
So I just love the idea of like this big propaganda poster is just like a cow.
Here's the hardest thing for me. The hardest fucking thing for me was getting cash. So nobody took card. There were just like now and then, if you were lucky and you talked to the right people, you could be like, hey, if you go down like 17 blocks that way, there's a restaurant that will accept credit card. Like, Christ. Okay. And I went, and it was really nice. They were very nice people, and they took my credit card, and it worked just fine. But everywhere only takes cash. Most people prefer American. They don't like taking Canadian, which is really weird to me, because the only tourists there are Canadians and like a small handful of Russians.
The dollar is the reserve currency.
I guess it's weird.
Globally.
They'll take pesos. But so like I ran out of cash. And I couldn't tip, and I couldn't buy anything, and I couldn't go back downtown. I'm like, shit, what the fuck do I do? And so I had to get like, I had to find a way to get downtown to get to the bank. The bank closed at 12:30. I'm like, fuck. Okay. And everyone's like, go to that ATM over there. Like I got cash out of that ATM. I'm like, okay, American? They're like, yeah, American. So I went on hanging out there. There's a line up there, and the Cubans are there. They're like, oh, there's no cash here. I'm like, what are you doing here there? And they're just all hanging around the ATM one at a time in a lineup. And after they're all done, they look at me like, what do you want? I'm like, I want to get cash out. Like, there's no cash. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And they showed me. They took out their wallet. They're like, oh, we're just moving money from this bank account to this bank account. I'm like, oh, okay. Fuck. And like, so I had to go back the next day. I had to wake up super early. There was a sort of an exchange thing at our resort that would not give Canadian or American, but you could take out pesos. The thing about taking out pesos is they wouldn't take it back. Banks wouldn't take the pesos back. Exchange currency places wouldn't take pesos back. If you took out pesos, you had to spend it then and there. If I took it back to Canada, Canada wouldn't exchange it. No one would. It's you take it out, you spend it or nothing. So I'm like, okay.
Something I find really weird about Canada is it's so hard to get money exchanged.
Yeah,
I went to a bank and I had to fill a form in, and I only wanted like, I don't know, like maybe like $400 US, which I thought was like was a reasonable amount to take.
I didn't find it hard. I got a whole bunch of American money at TD Bank. It took seconds. It wasn't hard.
You have to be a customer of TD to do the money exchange. If you're not a customer of TD,
is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. Whereas in the UK and in Europe, they have like they call it the Bureau de Change, which is essentially you can go there and there's a list of like all the currencies and the rates in digital things, and you go, hello, I would like to exchange this for Turkish lira, and they'll just go, all right, and they'll just hand you the money. And they're in like supermarkets and on high streets. You can just exchange money at like
let me tell you what I almost did, and I didn't because it felt too fucking scam artisty. Too scam artisty. And it turns out it isn't a scam. This is just how bad the economy is down there. So I'm talking days and days and days of trying to get cash out, right? I finally had to go and get just enough pesos from the bank resort to pay a cab driver to take me downtown Varadero before the fucking international bank closes. There are two types of banks. There's banks for the locals and then banks for tourists. And I get there before the bank closes, and I finally get in, and I'm like, yeah, and there's a lineup. I'm like, okay, that's not that bad of a lineup. And they're like, we don't give American dollars here or Canadian. It's only pesos. I'm like, are you shitting me? I could have gotten pesos pesos back at the fucking resort. Great. Fuck this. I'm not waiting in line. I go all the way back. Takes an hour to go all the way back to the resort. I go to the fucking little exchange bank thing at the resort. They're like, we can give you $20 in pesos a day. I'm like, what? So it was just, and then if I get this cab driver, he's like, are you trying to get cash out? I can give you American dollars if you buy stuff for me with your credit card. And I'm like, that just seems like a fucking scam to me. But apparently it's not. Like,
you go to IKEA with a taxi driver.
Like, I don't, because like they can only buy so much stuff in their own currency. Like they can only take out so much cash per day. Like
it's like rationing.
Banks, it is, and like at the banks, you can only like the Cubans can only take out so much cash per day. They're on an allotment, right? And so if it's nuts, man. It's amazing. So I didn't do it. I feel bad because I just felt like a scam, right? Like this random cab driver's like, I'll give you American if you go and buy me some stuff with your credit card. I'm like, I don't. I'm gonna go.
Just buy him a futon from IKEA, help him put it together, and then he hands you $100. Done.
So what I ended up doing to get cash to tip people.
I don't want to know. I don't think we want to know what you did to get cash. I went
to, there's a bar at the pool, which I've always wanted to do. I've never done this, where you can swim in a pool and then you can swim up to the bar and they'll just feed you drinks in the pool. I'm like,
I've done that.
I've never done it before in my life. I wanted to
highly
do it,
irresponsible, but I love it.
Yeah, it was great, right? So I'm like, okay, it's in the mid-afternoon. I'm going to go sit and read my Kindle and have a drink with the sun and half submerged in water. That sounds fun. And it was fun. I actually really liked it. And then there was this couple next to me and we ended up chatting and we chatted for a couple hours and I told them my situation and I'm like, look, I know this is going to sound scammy, but just hear me out. I have no cash and I feel like a fucking asshole. I can't tip anybody. I can't tip the maids. I can't tip the bartenders. If I were to email money transfer you and then you were to see in your email, ding, you have money, would you give me the equivalent in American dollars? And they're like, yeah, we'll do that for you. And they gave me $40 and it worked out great. So I had just enough to tip people on the last leg of my journey and I didn't feel like a fucking dick anymore.
You should have just told them you're British. British people don't tip.
Is that true?
Anyway, yes, it is. It is. So, anyway,
no, but at the end of my trip,
we're going to wrap up. I want to fit another one in and we're over on time.
Okay. I was just going to say, like, I was told to bring toiletries, and I'm like, I'm not filling my suitcase full of toilet paper. But then I get there, and one of the last days, some of the staff are like, hey, listen, if you have anything, if you have like toilet paper, sunscreen, bug spray, you have extra T-shirts. I'm like, Jesus Christ, they weren't fucking kidding. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So everyone was worried about me. Everyone, all my friends, all my family were sending texts. Are you okay? Are you going to be okay? I'm like, I'm going to be just fine. I'm on an all-inclusive resort. The worst thing that's going to happen, the worst case scenario, is that I'm going to have to hang out on a Caribbean beach for a few extra days while the airline figures out how to get me home. I'm not worried about myself at all. I'm worried about the Cubans. I'm worried about the locals. Those guys are the ones I'm worried about. Exactly. I'm fine.
Cool. So. All right. Well, anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, I wouldn't say enjoyed. If you found this episode educational,
if you enjoyed this episode, there's something wrong with you, and you need to take a good hard look in the mirror at yourself. Yeah.
But we'll see you next week.
See you next week, everybody.
Super cool, they're much too polite. A place that's exciting with quick